OLED battle, and not just specs, real life reasons why you'd want one of these TVs over the other. The Sony A8H, the LG C10, and the Vizio OLED-H1. Fight! What's up YouTube, it's B the Installer. I'm a low voltage contractor and I like to buy technology and watch TV, so that makes me a pro, right? No, I'm just kidding. But I'm excited to put these three OLEDs up against each other to find out which one is right for you. So as I said, I'm going over the Sony A8H, the LG C10, and the Vizio OLED-H1. I'm gonna go over what you get in the box and what connects to the TV on the outside, what each TV has going on the inside, and then finally, and most excitingly, I'm gonna show you direct comparisons of these three TVs as they're all now on my TV wall that I built, and I'm gonna show you a quick little time lapse, give the comparisons, and let you guys decide which one's right for you. And as the video is going, I'm gonna rank these TVs by giving 3 points to the TV that has the best score in a category, 2 to the middle, and 1 for the worst in each category. But right as we get into it, make sure to smash the like button when you find this video worthy. If you don't find it worthy, smash the dislike button. I don't really care, just smash something. And take the opportunity to subscribe and ring the bell, and definitely comment on this one, because in 2 weeks I'm gonna come back and make a second video looking at some of the comments that I get over the first few days of what you guys like, what you don't like, what things I missed, and what things you'd like to add. So as I said, we're gonna talk about what's in the box. And the first thing is the TV stand. And first we'll start with the Sony. Now the Sony one is pretty easy. It just has 2 feet that go kind of wide, and you just slip them straight down on the TV and flip it upside down. So anyone that's looking to just get instant gratification and get their TV stood up, the Sony is definitely the easiest to stand up. Now the Vizio, on the other hand, is far more complicated. You need like 16 different screws to get it going, and while the front has a cool little metal curved lip, the back actually looks like a high heel, and it's just very weird. I'm not really sure why they decided to design it like this, but it does have a little wobble and kind of can tip back each way. So definitely confusing. I'm not sure what Vizio was thinking, but it does kind of work with their cable management system. LG, on the other hand, has a very sleek and nice stand. It's quite heavy actually, but it's made to double as a soundboard. So the sound comes straight down out of the TV and then shoots out at the audience. So I kind of like the LG for those reasons. So once you get the TV on the stand, we're gonna talk about the build quality of these TVs. And all three of the TVs look pretty cool. The LG and the Vizio look identical from the front because they have exactly the same screen. However, the back is a little different. The Vizio has kind of a shinier plastic feel to it, while the LG kind of has a brushed metal type look. The Sony is just well done overall. I really like the Sony design. It has very straight edges all around the TV, and the screen is a little thicker. I don't really see a benefit of making the LG and Vizio screen so thin. People do mount TVs on the wall, people do move the TVs left and right, so it's not quite as scary when you're picking up and moving around a Sony, whereas the Vizios and the LG, you gotta be very careful with them, especially the 65 and the 77-inch TVs. So I'd probably give an edge to the lighter but more sturdy Sony A8H. And all of them have various ports on the back, but the HDMI ports are what's most important. And the Sony A8H has 4 HDMIs, but they're only HDMI 2.0. So there's no 2.1 gaming features. It does have the eARC, or enhanced audio return channel, which all three TVs have, but no 4K at 120 frames per second for the Sony A8H. The LG and the Vizio both do have HDMI 2.1. The LG does have 4 HDMI 2.1s that do run 4K at 120, and the Vizio actually only has 2 ports that are 2.1. Both the LG and the Vizio have game mode, or ALLM. They both have VRR, both have FreeSync, and the LG actually has G-Sync as well. The remotes for these three TVs are also all unique. The LG Magic Remote is a very touchy subject. I mean, literally and figuratively. A lot of people really like it or really don't. I happen not to like it. It also is very touchy when you have it on a stand and you put your foot on it, it shakes and the cursor comes up on the screen. So I'm not a huge fan of the LG remote, but those who are a fan of it do like the fact that you can auto assign each number to an app on your TV. So that's a pretty cool feature. The Vizio remote is pretty traditional, pretty bland. It has the buttons you need. It's just a little less exciting than the LG, to be honest. And with the Sony remote, I'm not a huge fan of how big it is, but it does have the best connectivity. So while all three of these remotes can connect to other devices that you have connected to your TV, the Sony has the added advantage that it is a Bluetooth remote, so I found it to be much more responsive to things like an Apple TV and other devices. All three companies should really consider backlighting their remotes, because when you're watching OLEDs in the perfect black situation, it's pretty annoying to have to try to find light to see the buttons on your remote. So now let's get to the inside of the TV. Though I don't want to get too far into the sound quality of each of these TVs, because I think you should just suck it up and get a sound bar or an audio system. I do like the LG speakers because, like I said, when it's on a stand, it does redirect that sound directly out at you. And it does have a little better sound stage than your average TV. Sony, on the other hand, sounds pretty good. It doesn't have quite the same highs as the LG does, but it does throw sounds throughout the room because the speakers are actually embedded in the bezel of the TV, and it vibrates and sends sounds all across the room. So it's pretty cool, and you actually can use the remote to calibrate it for your room. Vizio, not that impressed. It kind of sounds like a CRT TV. Kids, you might have to Google that acronym. But yeah, it's pretty blah. So Sony and LG, pretty solid. Vizio, I heard they make soundbars, so maybe you can go that route. Next, we got the operating system, and Vizio has the SmartCast, which, if you're a Vizio person, you're familiar with it. It's never been my favorite, but it does have a lot of apps, to be fair. It does have AirPlay as well, and I like that the screen is kind of set up like an Amazon Fire TV where you have a lot going on. So for those of you who are cable cutters, it's got a lot going on and it should be pretty fun and keep you busy. The LG WebOS is pretty solid. I like that you have a lot of apps again. You can move them around on your home screen, and I like that it pops up the home screen without actually killing the content behind it. So if you're watching Netflix, you can bring up the home screen and decide what you want to watch next, or you can back out of that menu, all without interrupting what you're currently watching. It's always been quick and responsive, and I've never really had any issues with it, so LG WebOS, pretty solid. And the Sony has the Android operating system, which is pretty solid too. What I like best about this is that it's connected to your Google account. So if you have a Google account, if you have a Samsung phone or whatever, you just log in. Once you're logged in, it auto-populates all of your passwords. Very easy to get into, and it's got like 1 billion apps. So I like that probably best out of the three. To be honest, all of them have most of what you'd need, but I think the LG and the Sony are a little faster. The Vizio SmartCast a little slower. The LG and the Vizio don't have HBO Max, which is a pretty popular app. And none of them have the Spectrum app, which is something that I use on the regular. So you always have to look and find out what you're gonna watch, what you're gonna need. And you know, if you get a TV that doesn't have what you need, you can always buy an Apple TV or a Fire Stick or Roku or whatever. So not the end of the world. But one thing I must point out, because it's kind of crazy in 2020, is that only 2 of these TVs actually have Bluetooth connectivity. So while the LG and the Sony can connect to my Sony XM4 headphones at night, I was very surprised to find out that Vizio has no Bluetooth connectivity. I mean, even the Hisense H9G has Bluetooth connectivity. Vizio's been making TVs for quite a while, no Bluetooth. So if you're thinking about putting one of these TVs in your bedroom, just know you have to buy a Bluetooth adapter for the Vizio, which does work just fine. But I was just surprised that the Vizio did not have any Bluetooth connectivity. And so that gets us to the fun stuff, finding out which of these TVs performs and looks better on the wall. And so I've been talking about building this TV wall in the last couple of my videos, and because some people in the world are having problems building walls, I thought I'd show you guys how I did it in this video. And before you ask, no one helped me build this wall. No input from LG, no input from Sony, no input from Vizio, and Mexico did not offer to pay for any part of this wall. And while I'm building this wall, I'll let you know that we're gonna check out 4 different kinds of content on the 3 TVs. I can't help myself, so the first thing we'll have to check out is watching some Dolby Vision movies on Disney Plus, as I normally do. And then we'll pop it out of Dolby Vision and check out some typical cable and some sports on the Spectrum app on my Apple TV. And lastly, we'll check out some gaming at 4K at 60. And as I said, hopefully by the end of the video, you'll be able to pick which TV is right for you. And in 2 weeks, like I said, we're gonna go down the rabbit hole a little bit further and compare these TVs in depth. And I'm gonna have them professionally calibrated as well during this time. I wanted to get a few hundred hours of viewing on these TVs first. And one of the TVs is inaccurate, I can tell just by looking at it, so get them calibrated. Not a big fan of calibrating TVs. Most people don't do it, but I want to make this a fair fight, so we'll have them professionally calibrated. There we go, all set. And as you can see, the bottom right is wide open, so definitely let me know what TV to put there. I have a good TV already sitting by. It is the best 4K QLED of 2020. Can you guess? Let me know in the comments. So anyone watching this video should know that HDR on OLEDs looks great, and it's all really solid. So what I really want to do is look at the brightness, find out which TV is the brightest, find out which one has the least amount of black crush, what has the most definition, and what has the best color. So I have a bit of an issue with people telling others that they should watch HDR or Dolby Vision in Cinema Home, or they should watch it in calibrated dark mode because it's the most accurate color. But you can change pretty much anything about these TVs. So I want to get it into a bright mode and adjust it to keep the blacks inky. I noticed that the Vizio had the advantage of being the brightest of the bunch. Then the LG and Sony are probably tied for second. Out of vivid, Vizio kind of comes back to earth and is no longer the brightest of the bunch on most of the other modes. And speaking of the inky blacks, we want it. But we also want to have some tones on the way up to white. And I noticed when putting the LG up against the Vizio, when I did a one-on-one, that the Vizio clearly crushed the blacks less. And people have told me that I need to increase the black levels on the LG, but the problem is you start to raise the blacks in general and you lose and wash out the picture a bit. The Sony's right in the middle. It has a little less black crush than the LG, but a little bit more than the Vizio. So though it does crush the blacks a little bit, the LG is pretty consistent on the highlights. It's pretty bright across the board, as I said, in the different modes. When you have a bright scene and you have clouds, for example, the Vizio does clip a little bit and you don't see those highlights. And the LG is pretty consistent and has very good highlights in the brighter tones. And Sony, again, Mr. Consistency, in the middle, has the highlights, doesn't crush the blacks. And with the brights and the dark laundry all done now, we can talk about the colors. And again, I'm going to calibrate these next week, but I wanted to give it a quick overview. So the Sony and the LG seem to be pretty accurate, and I can get them to look as good as I want them to. The Vizio, on the other hand, had a little bit of issue throughout different profiles. I found it to be a little bit green, a little bit yellow. So out of the box, the Vizio isn't quite as accurate as the LG or the Sony. So we'll have to see with calibration, probably be able to get it quite accurate, but something to think about if you're not planning on getting your TV calibrated, right? The last thing I think worth mentioning is that the Vizio and Sony have very good definition across HDR. I've gotten a lot of feedback about this, that my TV may be off or I'm doing something wrong, but I have two LG C10s and they're sharp and they look great from 6 to 8 feet away. But when you're looking at these side by side and you're right up to them, you can see that the Vizio, for example, is so sharp, maybe too sharp, but the people's hair on their face and clothing, it's fantastic. And Sony also has a little bit more definition than the LG. It's almost like LG intentionally kind of looks a little bit more blurry up close, as if they want to have a silky smooth look to it. Even when I increase definition settings, it's not quite the same. No complaints though, very happy with the LG brightness and color. I'm just trying to point out the little subtle differences between these TVs. So I want to move on to standard cable 1080 content, and I have the Spectrum app and turned it on to some news just to see how the TVs compared. And right off the bat, I noticed that the Sony is definitely the smoothest when it comes to processing this content. Very smooth as it moves around the screen. Same with sports. The Sony handles the fast motion the best. LG is a little bit behind and Vizio is a little bit behind further. Vizio remained the brightest and again still had the most detail in the shadows, and the SDR color actually looked a little better. I think in face tones in the regular content, the naturally warmer profile that the Vizio has looked a little bit better, even if it isn't accurate in color. Overall, I'm pretty happy with all three TVs when upscaling, but Sony has a little bit of an edge in the processing. And lastly, we need to talk about gaming. And when it comes to these three TVs, I just want to say 4K at 60, for the most part, is going to be just fine with any of the TVs. I get slammed more because people think that HDMI 2.1 is not necessary yet than people backing it, but I know I'm gonna get comments either way. But just for the sake of extending my view time here, let's quickly go back over the three TVs for gaming. But remember, the Sony A8H has 4K at 60. It doesn't have 1440 at 100 frames per second, even though last year's A9G did. No game mode, no VRR, it does have eARC. And again, the Vizio and the LG do have HDMI 2.1. The LG has 4 ports, the Vizio has 2. Both have game mode, both have VRR, both have FreeSync. The LG has G-Sync. So the only thing I guess I'll have to say is, I think Sony dropped the ball with regards to not having HDMI 2.1 on their top OLED TV in the year that they make the PlayStation 5. So have to deduct a point for that. So what did we learn? Now, I do think all three of these OLED TVs are fantastic, but don't sleep on the Vizio OLED. It's Vizio's first OLED. I've never been a huge fan of Vizio's, but it does absolutely have the best peak brightness, and you can tweak it and get a lot out of this panel. And while it has the inky blacks, you can still see a lot of detail in the shadows until it clips a bit at the brightest highlights. It has extremely good detail across the different sources I use, and I'm hoping that the calibration can dial the color in even better, and in the near future that they'll help PC gamers by getting the VRR working. The LG C10 is not LG's first go-around, and while some people complain that they took a step back in the 2.1 gaming, they still pretty much have everything you could ask for. I did have a bit of an issue trying to raise the blacks without washing out the picture, and overall it doesn't have the exact level of detail of the other TVs, but it has a very smooth picture quality, great speakers, it looks great in the stand, and people who love LG really love LG. So that should say something about the products they make. I'd love to see them squeeze a little bit more out of the picture. And Sony seems like it's the overall winner here. It doesn't have the HDMI 2.1 for the next-gen gaming features, but it is the best with regards to processing and consistency. While it's not the brightest, it has all the best parts of the Vizio and LG picture quality, without the shortcomings of the crushed blacks or the inaccurate colors. And with the Bluetooth remote, Android OS, and the processing of the HDR and upscaling content, the Sony A8H wins this battle, but not by much. And a lot of people that are gamers may beg to differ. And at the time of this video, all three of these TVs are within $100 of each other. So hopefully with the information here, what you're going to be using the TV for, and the pricing, you can really come to a great decision on what's best for you. Check the links down below for pricing, and remember, round 2 will be fully calibrated and we'll go into more detail. So make sure you comment below and let me know what you want to see in the next video. Make sure to smash the like button on the way out, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified when I upload my next video. And just remember, with my help, you can be the installer.